Hey, leaders, we have a very special conversation that I know both Lorna and I have been looking forward to for a long time. This year, we've had the chance to engage with over 85 different schools to either come and join their school for a day or watch recordings of collaborative team meetings. We've been able to engage directly with them, and we've gleaned some insights, some ideas, some strategies that we've found really, really interesting. So we've been keeping a collection as we've gone along, and in this conversation, we're going to break it all down for you. We have a hodgepodge of ideas that could be considerations for your collaborative response efforts. So let's get started. Now, Lorna, we usually start with a first minute freebie, something
We
that
do.
people could take away, but this whole episode is takeaways.
So many things, so many things.
So I discussed in the opening that we've been engaged with a lot of schools this year. I mean, it's probably one of the reasons, A, we're in two separate locations today because I'm in one more tomorrow, but we're also pretty tired after being out and about so much in schools.
It's been a busy spring for sure.
Yeah, so we counted it up, and it's turned out that between the two of us, have been involved in 60 school feedbacks. And essentially, what that is we go in and spend a day or portions of a day with a school. We watch their meetings, we engage in discussions with admin to hear what they've done, where they're seeing successes, challenges, and then we also talk to teachers about what they're seeing. We go and write them feedback about here's some great things we saw. Here might be some next steps. And I had a person yesterday, Lorna, that had said they had loved going through that process with you because, and I quote, Lorna just gave us little tweaks that were easy to implement, but oh, they're going to have so much difference. So we love the feedback process to be able to get into schools.
Yeah, we love being in schools, and it's so great just to see what's happening, how people have envisioned and reshaped a collaborative response to fit their building and their culture in their building. And educators are so amazing. They're constantly coming up with new ideas. And of course, we get the privilege of sharing, foundational ideas that we started this work with, but oh my gosh, we learn so, so much from everyone else and how they take those ideas and shape them and mold them into their own.
Well, and I'll echo that because some of the things that we teach as pretty foundational parts may not have been to start off with because I can remember the first time I saw a school utilize a pre-meeting organizer for a collaborative team meeting and went, oh boy, that is brilliant.
Yeah.
Everyone should be doing that. I wish we would have been doing that. And that's really the ethos of this conversation. So we mentioned the school feedback, but we've also done more of the micro collaborative team meeting feedback. And that's where we
Yeah.
come in to just watch that meeting, just that, not seeing the connections to the other components, or sometimes it's a recording that gets
Mhm.
sent to us. And again, that's seeing just one part of the overall collaborative response framework, but still, we can learn a lot in those collaborative team meeting situations as well. So let's break this down. We've kind of organized this around the three foundational components. So let's start off with collaborative structures and processes. And I'm not shocked to see that this is where the large majority
Yeah.
of the different things that we've seen that we'd like to share, because we've also said there's a reason why visually this is the biggest puzzle piece. The
Yeah.
collaborative
Yeah.
structures and processes that you establish in your school are so fundamental for us
Mhm.
that the data and evidence and continuum of supports are not going to have the same impact if we haven't really directed attention to how we set up layers of team.
Well, and it truly is how we provide the support that we provide for students. So without collaborative structures and processes, you don't have a way of making that happen. So absolutely, this is such an essential part of collaborative response.
So we've been, as I mentioned, generating a list every time we've seen something where we go, oh, we need to share that. It's gone on
Yeah.
to this list. So we're going to jump around a little bit. I want to start off the first one. And this comes from a smaller school where oftentimes it's the same people in the same layers of team in their meetings. Sometimes they're bridging those layers together during the same day or the same time. But in this school, they had an agenda for their PD day, but they had broken it into sections. And then what they did is when they were engaging in collaborative planning, focusing on tier one supports, they had a logo of the collaborative planning image that we share through all of our stuff. That was right on the agenda. So it clearly visually showed we're working on this now together. And then later in their agenda, they launched into a collaborative team meeting, same people around the table, but that had the collaborative team meeting logo on it. So I thought, what a powerful way to demonstrate overall that there's different types of collaboration we're doing. Each has a different purpose, but we've clearly identified this would be one I would take back to my own school for sure to be able to get that continued clarity.
Yeah, and just being very clear about the purpose and why we're meeting and what type of meeting we are having. That's really powerful.
Yeah, so I'm gonna lob the next one out to you because when you came home and shared that you had been in a school that had set up a celebrations meeting, it was really interesting. Can you share what that looked like?
Yeah, so I had been in a school and doing some school feedback and gone through the collaborative team meeting and there were no celebrations. There was a review of last meeting, but there were no celebrations. And I was a little bit surprised about that because that's so core to what we do. And following, I found out later in conversation with the principal that they actually have taken the celebrations and had a separate meeting about 3 weeks later. So they have their collaborative team meeting, and then about 3 weeks later, they have a celebrations meeting,
Now, you
and
said
it's
it wasn't a long meeting.
no, like about 30 minutes, 20 or 30 minutes, where that's all they do is celebrate. But the purpose behind it is that they were wanting to connect it to the actions that had been identified in the collaborative team meeting. And then 3 weeks later, had celebrations for the growth that they have seen in those students that they had talked about in their collaborative team meeting.
So I could imagine that too. There's a really, really easy way for us to link our data and evidence to be able to say,
Yeah.
come ready with a celebration from something and bring evidence of what that looked like.
Yeah,
Great way
and the
because I was just going to say in the cadence of a regular collaborative team meeting, we probably don't have the time to be able
yeah.
to attend to that if we want to get into focusing on key issues and some next steps. But if that's the core purpose, we can really examine what did you do, what did it look like, what was the impact, and show it to others.
hmm And it was very clear to them that they needed to pause. They needed that space of time, the 2 or 3 weeks later, because they needed to give it the strategy or the ideas that they were trying out. They needed time to see if they actually would work for that student or
So
not.
I'm thinking if this was my school, I'd have that collaborative team meeting. 3 weeks later, we'd have the celebrations meeting in connection. And then for me, it might be another 2 weeks, and then we'll do another collaborative team meeting so
Right.
that we're still kind of in that 5 week
In that
system
cycle.
cycle.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it. Okay,
Yeah, it's
so
great. So
this,
another idea that that we have seen and a number of schools engaging in this now is how do you use AI to help you in your collaborative team meetings? And so now we're seeing a lot of schools with a role in their meetings of the AI agent. And the purpose of this, of course, is to generate additional ideas beyond what the team is creating within their own space.
okay, so anyone that's been listening to us for a while, this is probably not new. We've mentioned it a few
No.
different times, but what I saw that was really interesting is they had the role of the AI agent, which I went, cool. They've been listening or they've heard somebody talking about this. But then in the one school I was in, they had a table display, just like we share with other roles, but then on the display for the person with that role, the prompt was written right
Mm,
on it. Here's the
yeah.
prompt that you'll use in in your AI platform. I saw another school who had a shared chat, and we use Gemini fairly often. The equivalent would be a gem, but a consistent one that's learning all the time. But it was shared amongst the team, and so that anyone who became the AI agent get into that ongoing I guess, yeah, the gem that is learning as we're
Yeah.
going. I thought that was really outstanding and makes it super clear. If that's your role, here's the tool that'll help you with it.
The one caution I would offer around that, though, is that we always want to start our brainstorm with the ideas at the table.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
understanding that, one of our purposes is building that collective efficacy and understanding that we all have expertise to bring. So we want to first begin with everyone around the table generating those ideas. And then for the AI agent to come in after. And that does two things. One is it, of course, expands our list of ideas, but the other thing is it confirms ideas that we already had. And so
Well,
when the AI agent, when the Gemini or Gem comes up and says 10 strategies and five of them you have already named, that allows us to recognize that, okay, we're doing good stuff.
see, and I see value of that in any team, but especially if it's a consistent team that's meeting on the regular basis, who are probably having hallway conversations as well. It just might
Yeah.
open up some out of the box thinking that they hadn't thought of. So the next one, this was a school where they were utilizing WeCollab. And WeCollab is designed to follow that collaborative team meeting process, but they also then had a poster right in their meeting space that said, remember, this is the structure for our collaborative team meeting. And it laid out that we'll spend this much time for celebrations and norms. We then will move to this. We'll then, like, it showed the order that had
Yeah.
happened, and it actually inspired us to create a template for this that you can go and edit. So I've added it into the notes from this conversation. It's also available in our membership. So please remember, for anyone that's interested in that membership, you can get free access to experience it for a month's time. If you go to crmembership.ca, all the information is there. But I thought that was a really outstanding way. I even suggested to another school I was in that was having a really solid case consult conversations with different staff members of saying, hey, I wonder if you could replicate that same poster over here to say that when we meet about one student, here's the sequence that we work through.
hmm And if you use consistent times, including your times on that as well, but it just allows you to really remember, especially when you're using the software, remember what are the segments that are important in our meeting as we meet together.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next one, we've got a couple that we've seen in regards to the pre-meeting organizer, and the one that I saw, and the principal had said we've shifted it into a Google form, and the
Mhm.
reason was is it allowed, and the idea was the form has to be completed before the meeting, but we then shared out the results, and the person said it gave an idea of what are the key issues that are going to be surfacing. Some people could start thinking about it ahead of time, but it also allowed to see, are there some linkages between certain key issues and could we meld them
Yeah,
together? I had worked with another school where they said they were doing something like that, but they actually didn't ask for they didn't in the form collect email addresses or the name of the teacher because they wanted to just be able to say, all right, here's a issue that has surfaced from the team.
yeah.
And really, we talk about the idea in the collaborative team meeting, let's take the teacher off the hot seat. That immediately takes them off the hot seat because we're just saying, here's a issue that was surfaced from our team. It's not, here's an issue Lorna is having
hmm
for a
hmm
student in her classroom.
Yeah, and the other nice thing about that is that as facilitators of those teams, then you get to see the key issues ahead of time, or you're involved in articulating those key issues and remembering that sometimes that can be the hardest part of a collaborative team meeting is coming to a good key issue and having that 6 to 8 words that clearly articulates a key concern that's happening at this time. So having it ahead of time allows us to formulate those key issues.
And not that we saw this, but it just surfaced in my mind as you were talking about this when we were thinking about the AI side of this. I think as a principal, I would take that if it was a sheet that was getting compiled throughout the course of a year of all the key issues that are getting sent for each of our meetings, I'd be throwing that through AI and asking it to theme it and what are the five key themes that are coming out because that could even start to drive some professional learning or different
Mhm.
things to be able to say, here seems to be some of the consistent issues we're seeing. So let's really put some focus on that.
Could even drive some of your priorities in your school improvement plan
I
too.
think so too. We'll be right back to continue this episode. Struggling to facilitate your first collaborative team meeting? We know that running effective, impactful team meetings can feel overwhelming, but we've got you covered. The Collaborative Team Meeting Starter Kit gives you everything you need to set up, organize, and lead meetings that foster real collaboration and results. And the best part, it's completely free. Inside, you'll get a real life collaborative team meeting vignette, a ready to use CTM agenda and notes template to keep meetings structured and efficient, a pre meeting organizer to help teachers prepare effectively, printable meeting role displays to ensure smooth facilitation, a facilitator support guide with step-by-step instructions, as well as a key issue process poster to reinforce the structured problem solving of a collaborative team meeting. All of this to help you start transforming your team meetings today. Download your free collaborative team meeting starter kit now at bit.ly/CTM starter, all one word. That's bit.ly/CTM starter, or find it under the resources tab on jigsawlearning.ca. And now back to our conversation. The other pre-meeting organizer adjustment that we've seen a school. Right at the top, it had, here's the link for the school support team referral. And
Mhm.
being able to have the lead in that school had said that putting it right on there, it helped to remind people, is this really a collaborative team meeting issue? Or is this something bigger that I should be elevating to the school support team? I thought putting the referral right on there was really, really smart.
Well, and it really leads to connecting the different teams, but as well ensuring that we understand what the purpose of each meeting is too.
Absolutely. So, yesterday, I was with a group of administrators, and the one administrator was sharing, we were sharing, what are some areas of strength and some next steps that they're envisioning. And this administrator had said, I think one of the areas of strength is our collaborative team meeting process is really solid. People understand what is its purpose, and the structure of it. And I jumped in to say, trust me, that's not by accident. It's because in their collaborative team meeting notes, they were writing procedural notes in red all the way through. So, for instance, when it got to examination of key issues, our document, our common notes template says key issue and with a little in brackets, focus on tier two ideas, whatnot. But then in red, they had put down just reminders of key issues should be 8 words or less. They should be focused on. It was repeating some of the things from their pre-meeting organizer, but in each section, it had red when it got to the brainstorming section. It even had in red, what are possible ideas that we could be considering? Remember, we should not be judging any of these ideas as they're all just possibilities when being shared. Like it just had those visual reminders all the way through that no wonder your team meeting is so well understood and structured. You've scripted it.
Yeah, and becomes a huge help for anyone who is facilitating those team meetings, but it also provides direction and understanding for the rest of the team members as well.
Yeah, so I mentioned that key issue process. This
Yeah.
is one that I've been the most excited to be able to see that it doesn't just have impact in the collaborative team meeting.
Oh my
And
goodness, no.
yeah, and the idea that when I can surface, rather than I want to talk about Darcy, being able to say, I'm seeing this key issue, it really moves us into a solution focused mindset
Yeah.
to examine possibilities. So I'm not surprised that it's been adopted into other meeting scenarios, but why don't you start to describe some of the ways that we've seen that being ported into other conversational structures?
Yeah, so we have experienced now a couple of school divisions who, when they bring their leadership team together, so principals and assistant principals, they design key issue discussions for each of small groups of principals who are coming together, and they talk about key issues that they are experiencing in their role as a leader in the school. And it just puts out the idea so that other people can say, oh, yeah, in that instance, this is what I do. And really coming to that place of sharing practice, which is what the key issue process is intended to do, even in the collaborative team meeting, but taking it to that next step of, how are some of the things that you are doing in your school as a leader? What are those challenging pieces and how you access the expertise of the other people around the table?
The part I love about this too is it's twofold. Not only are we examining issues that are pertinent to the people around the table that I'm bringing, here's an issue I'm dealing with, and others being able to say, yeah, me too. What could we do? But it's also modeling the process
Yeah.
so that we can see it over and over again as participants to then go back in our schools and lead with our teachers, where we're looking at key issues related to school operations and instructional um, leadership. In the school, we're looking at key issues related to students. I love the chance that we get to model and practice it before we
Mhm.
go back into our school. So that's one way. You've been engaged with a learning support team
Yeah.
that's engaged
Yeah.
using this as well.
So this is a team where all the learning support teachers coming from every school are coming together to do some professional learning together. And for them, they consistently create two different key issues. One key issue is always focused on their role. So what is a concern that you have as a learning support teacher that you would like to be able to explore what other people do? And
Now,
so we work through that key issue in that way.
I'm going to jump in there too, just to clarify that when you're saying learning support teacher, this is a role that has many names. We've seen
Yeah.
it called inclusive ed facilitators. We've seen it called in special education coordinators. Uh,
Coordinator of student
yeah,
services.
lots
Yeah,
of
a
different. So
lot
that's
of
the kind
different
of
things.
role that you're talking about.
Yeah, so it might be a key issue. Like one key issue that we had explored a while ago was really where I'm having a lot of challenges in getting parents to sign their IPPs. So
The individualized
we
program
do.
plans for students.
Yeah. But that same group then also engages in a student-focused key issue. And these are key issues that they're experiencing in their school that they want to be able to explore some different ideas, but without naming the student at all, because of course we're coming together as individuals from multiple schools, from multiple
Mhm.
buildings. So just identifying a concern, we explored the issue of a student running.
Yeah, what do we do when we've got a student that bolts from the classroom?
Yeah, what are some strategies that other people have tried so that, can really explore the many things that different people try in different situations?
Yeah, so this next one, this is not new. When we talk about the key issue, we've talked lots about how at the divisional level, as divisional leaders, could we be looking at what are key issues for schools and what could we do to help support them? That's not new, but I've now seen the key issue process. I had one school that recorded a staff meeting and shared that in the staff meeting, the discussion points that we have were framed as key issues. So, for instance, a key issue was enhancing supervision on the playground. We're
Mhm.
finding that there's an increase in the number of behavioral incidents that are happening that sometimes are resulting in kids sent to the office at the end of that recess time. So the key issue is examining and adjusting our supervision schedule. And then they went into what could we do and threw out the ideas and then came back to start actioning the next steps. I thought that was a great way to frame those. And then we just recently heard of another school that took students, a student
Yeah.
leadership team, and said, what are the key issues, your experiences as students, and what could we do? So the one that we heard of was a student body that was examining the key issue of students who don't feel like they belong in our school. All right,
Hmm.
there's our key issue. What could we do? And then come back to say, all right, from all these ideas, what do we wish to action out as a team?
And using that key issue process to access student voice.
Yeah.
So incredibly powerful.
All right. So the last one that we're going to share in relation to collaborative structures and processes, this is one I just heard yesterday. I don't even think I've had the chance to tell you this yet. That a school had said, every one of our staff members understands the collaborative planning team structures and the collaborative team meeting because they're
Mhm.
involved in it, they're living it. But when we talk about, oh, we'll escalate that student to a school support team meeting, they go, a what now? And they wonder what happens in that. So this school, what they're planning as they come into next year is that every staff member is going to get assigned to a school support team meeting to join as an observer. And their role in that is not necessarily to contribute, but just to have a chance to watch what happens at this level. What types of
Mhm.
conversations are happening? What types of supports are in place? It may not be in relation to any student they have a connection to, but the entire purpose was how can you understand a layer, even if you're not involved in it, and recognize that when it gets escalated, this is what's happening in that conversation.
Hmm. That's really incredible because it does provide we when we go through the development of a continuum of supports and we get to that space of, we're asking teachers to name all the things that they do in the classroom and what are some of the things that you do for some of the students some of the time and really clearly, and they've got all kinds of ideas in tier one and tier two, but that by the time we hit tier three, which is the school support team, we have fewer ideas that come into play. And I was with a school a few weeks ago, helping them to develop their continuum. And one of the assistant principals said, uh, I don't, I'm not sure that our teachers are going to be able to even name what happens at tier three and at tier four.
Yeah.
So the super interesting. So it would be really great to be able to have that awareness, even just as a passive participant, just to understand what does that conversation look like
Mhm.
and how do we elevate students to that place.
Absolutely. So we're going to shift to data and evidence, and I want to share two that I had direct connection with this year. We'll be right back to continue this episode. As school leaders, we have mounting pressures to ensure that data is not only being used to inform our responses, but can be leveraged to evidence if what we're doing is leading to better outcomes for students. Planning for the effective use of data with our teachers is hard, but it doesn't have to be. When schools have a targeted plan for the collection and utilization of data and evidence related to student success, conversations become more focused and staff can see the impact their collective practices are having for students. Join me for the online on-demand workshop establishing a school-wide data and evidence plan. 10 considerations to maximize the use of data in your school, part of our Supporting Collaborative Response series. In this workshop, I shared 10 considerations for school leaders when establishing a school-wide data and evidence plan focused on the key measures being used to inform priority areas. I also share numerous resources, templates, and samples to help support the effective determination, scheduling, collection, organization, analysis, and sharing of that data. Purchase the workshop and you'll also have the ability to replay all or any portion of the workshop as you wish. Access this on-demand workshop today to learn more about how to effectively align your school's data and evidence as a foundational component of a school's collaborative response. And now back to our conversation. The first one was a school that had said, we're trying to move the needle on behavior within our school. We have a code of conduct that's established school-wide that's really about creating cultural components. But how do we measure that? What do we do? And so, what we work through as a school is taking our old adage of if you have data, color code it. How
Yeah.
can we color code that to determine who are students that we would say are in the red, the yellow, the green, the blue? And again, if you're the first time stumbling onto this, when we say red, we're talking about students not yet meeting expectations in this particular area. Yellow is they're approaching, they're close, they're not there yet, but they're closer. Green is meeting, blue is exceeding. And then what they started to do is create co or develop co-created criteria to be able to say when we say red at this school in relation to behavior, what does it mean?
What does it mean?
What does
Hmm.
it look like? Just to
Hmm.
get a common understanding to then start building a data set
Yeah.
around this. And then they were going to use that data set to start informing goals for teams, to start ensuring when we come to a collaborative team meeting, bring a yellow student. It allowed them to get real clarity on
Hmm.
data and evidence or data sets in a somewhat non-traditional priority area. I mean, we've engaged in ourselves as a school focusing on improving literacy,
Yeah.
where we had a data set that was utilizing a pretty well-established
Hmm.
tool that's norm referenced and all of that. But when we look at some non-traditional areas of focus, I thought it was really interesting to try and break down that criteria.
Well, and we know that in academics, typically we've got a lot to lean on in terms of data. But when we look at that mental health, or we look at behavior supports, or we look at social emotional wellness,
Student well-being, yeah.
yeah, it is a little bit more difficult to come up with those, especially publishers' tools, because there's not that many out there. But understanding that we don't necessarily need that. We don't need a publisher's tool. We don't need to spend significant money on getting a specific tool. But really thinking about when we think about those color codes, then what is the criteria that we would say? Well, first of all, establishing what does this look like when we say mental health and wellness? What do we mean? And then from there to say, what are those four categories that we would clearly describe with criteria to be able to determine where students are at?
Now, this school also said this is a starting place. They were envisioning could we start to build in office referrals into this,
Mm,
or log entries, or student surveys to help further calibrate the color coding, and a great starting place. We'll throw into the notes with this conversation an example of what that
mhm.
looked like. I was able to gather that. I then had a school that took the same type of thought process and built out mental health. And what they did is they sent every teacher a survey that had one question. It said, out of the different identifiers that you're seeing in your classroom for mental health, and there was about 10 or so indicators or observables that were listed. They said, pick the three that you think are most prevalent in your
Mm,
classroom. And then from that, they devised from our overall consensus from our staff, here's the six that are the subdomains of mental well-being that we're going to start tracking. And then they used a simple color coding schema that said we're color coding them red if that area is a significant concern for a student. We'll color them yellow if it's somewhat of a concern, and then green if it is little or no concern in that area. They didn't have a blue criteria for exceeding because I don't know what exceeding mental health would look like.
yeah.
Um, but it was allowing them to start formulating a mental well-being data set that
Mhm.
was, again, if you want to find out what should we be looking for, ask the people closest to the kids.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
that was great. Okay, let's move to continuum of supports. So, what's one thing that you've seen that has stood out to you in this past year around continuum of supports, Lorna?
Yeah, so about a month ago, I was in a school that had been working all through the year to really clarify and articulate their tier one non-negotiables. And as they did that, they began to create a bulletin board in the hallway where teachers can see it, parents can see it, students can see it, that these are our core instructional practices across our school. And I think that's a really powerful testament to the common understanding and publicly naming, here are the things that we all believe are important in our classrooms.
Yeah. It wasn't this year. I'd seen that in a previous year, but then they had also put QR codes next to it so that
Mm,
parents could scan a QR code and find out what it means there. And as you were talking, and I was thinking about that, I was thinking, man, that would even be a great way to almost be like a meet the teacher, where you could scan this one and someone could say, "Hi there. Mr. Houston. I am the blah blah teacher." And when we talk about small group targeted reading instruction, this is what we mean when we say that. What a great way to to reinforce what are the non-negotiables, but to actually have it that the teachers are the ones that are sharing. This is what it looks like for us.
yeah, that's exciting. And along with that, and we have seen this also happen uh, for a while now, is creating those one-page documents that have their tier one practice and clearly describing what that looks like and what are some of the what it would feature in a classroom, how you do this particular strategy in your classroom, but having accessible documents that clearly describe what that is.
Okay, this wasn't on our list because I didn't think of it till right now, but I had forgotten of the one school who had that. But then what they did on PD days is they had a team that taught the other staff members about that non-negotiable. It was that team's responsibility to do a little bit of research that in this, they called it their goalposts. These are the goalposts that we've established in each one of our classrooms, but then it
Mm,
was teachers teaching teachers
yeah.
about what does it look like? How do you do it? What are some of the tools that you could
Mhm.
utilize as we're getting really deep? In that school, they had 8 goalposts, and their intention was we're going to go deep into 4 of them this year, 4 of them next year. And the idea was, yeah, we know it'll take us some time, but we're focusing on depth of understanding and
Mhm.
mastery, not coverage.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So, the one school I was at, they had said that they met every morning in morning prayer. This is a Catholic school where, as a staff team, before the students arrived, they always congregated for morning prayer to center themselves, and then they always just did some updates. You know, hey, remember this is happening today. Hey, remember this student. You might want to know this. It could impact their day in a certain way. Just really quick. But what they started to do is on the Monday, in association with prayer, they would say, all right, this week we're focusing on this tier one instructional practice. So they had identified in their school 6 instructional practices that they believed were high impact strategy or high impact universal practices. And then said, this week we're focusing on this one. And the intention is everyone in your classroom give that a little bit of extra credence, some thought, some reflection, because Friday, when we come together, and it was actually at the end of the day. It wasn't for prayer, but they said before we depart, all the staff congregate for about 10 minutes, and everyone just shares out what did that look like in my classroom this week? Just share with us all. They also said it was a great way to build community, that we
Yeah,
always come together to reinforce that we are, this is an us, and
yeah.
then we take off for the weekend. I
Yeah,
thought,
that's beautiful. And it's confirming practice, but also sharing, maybe some revisions or versions of that idea with each other, and then talking about how it worked, or maybe it didn't work as well as you thought that it was going to. Those are fantastic
but I could
conversations.
almost see it like a quasi version of a collaborative team meeting in a sense, because I could picture someone saying, I didn't really get a chance to focus on it this week because of X, X, and X. And someone else saying, I struggled with that too. But one of the things I tried was
Yeah,
X, to be able to have a person go, oh, that's interesting, right? You're still building people's toolboxes.
yeah, yeah,
So
for sure.
I want to give a shout out to, and I know we haven't mentioned schools throughout this at all, but I have to mention the school because it will be the sample included in the show notes. And this comes from Rich Valley School, a smaller school that we've had great opportunity to engage with for a number of years. I came in to spend some time. I was in their collaborative team meeting, and what they've developed is a spreadsheet that has four areas of focus: literacy, numeracy, social emotional, and indigenous tools or strategies to help support their truth and reconciliation goal area. But what this spreadsheet has, and you'll be able to see it if you check it out in the notes, what they've done is focused on just tier two level supports, the things that you could be trying in your classroom. And then they identified, let's name it, they would identify what strand does it focus on. So for instance, in the literacy, there was a strand for vocabulary, a strand for phonics, a strand for writing, and so forth. And then a little brief description of what does it look like or a link to it. They even then put the initials of the staff member who suggested it or who knew of the resource, kind of like the who's someone you should talk to after if you're wondering more
Yeah.
about this thing. And then what they were doing is during the meeting, someone was suggesting ideas off this, but then they were also adding to it as well. So it was just growing this bank of responses, which I think is really great. Check it out. I have a feeling it might inspire some other schools to think about how do we capture some of these ideas.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. And one final idea is really at the end, keeping a little space of time at the end of your collaborative team meeting to create that tie into your continuum of supports to be able to say, what are two strategies that we could possibly add to our continuum?
Yeah, and I hear this over and over again of we have a continuum built, but we don't really utilize it well in our meetings. And this would
Yeah.
be a great way to just keep it as an ongoing addition of, okay, two things that came up today that we should write down so we don't forget them in the future. So, with this, oh my goodness, that's a lot to unpack. Anyone who stuck around till the end, thank you, as I know this has been a longer conversation than usual, but I think it's a testament to the amazing work that you alluded to earlier, Lorna, that we see over and over again in schools and with educators that are really trying to understand this collaborative response framework, but then start to see little tweaks and additions for how they can strengthen it over time.
Yeah, brilliant people doing brilliant things for kids.
Absolutely. So I know for a fact that we usually end off by asking or stating, we hope that you found some valuable or an actionable, some value or an actionable next step. I hope people had their notepads with them because there was many to walk away from. And if anyone has any other tips, tricks, hacks that they've built, oh my goodness, please reach out to us at questions@jigsawlearning.ca, as we'd love to hear what that is, and we'll start compiling it for when we do this again next year.
Yeah, and so many ideas, and we always love to hear from you. So please reach out if there's anything, if there's another topic you want us to explore as well, or if you've got things to share, we would be so happy to be able to explore those ideas.
So, with that, we're wishing you a fantastic summer break as we know that's upcoming for us, and as well, all the best as you lead collaborative response in your own organization.
See you soon.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. We'll see you on the next episode.